Today's conversation is sponsored by First Generation Capital Partners.
That 20 unit might be $3 million, $4 million, and that just might not be in your buy box. So a single family might be the strategy. And maybe you then eventually sell your single family and scale up. But you got to be able to look at what your profile is and how you can get into the business.
You're listening to the Going Long podcast with Billy Keels, the #1 podcast for long-distance real asset investing.
Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. I'm your host, Billy Keels, and yes, we're back for another action-packed conversation, short and punchy and to the point. It's going to be a lot of fun, even though I'm a little tongue-tied this morning. But anyway, it's all good. Want to say thank you so much to everyone who continues to share your honest written reviews as well as ratings. Really appreciate that. If you haven't done it, we've got a nice short video that'll help you walk through, especially if you're on the Apple Podcast platform or Spotify. Continue to tag us. We really appreciate that across social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, fantastic. And then also too, if you want to check out any of the previous episodes, just go to firstgencp.com/podcast. You can find the audio, the videos, the transcripts. Once again, that's firstgencp.com/podcast. So if you are someone who's worked at a very large Fortune 500 company, you've been in sales and marketing, and you realize like, hey, listen, this is a lot of fun, but at the same time, you want to be able to build your own runway that could potentially even lead you into your own new business. Like today's conversation is really one that you're going to want to take notes on because it's just a really cool conversation. So we're going to get to the conversation that I had with the principal at CRE Endeavors, Whitney Ward, and we'll get to that just after this. So if you want to understand how teaming and focus can turbo boost your long distance investing success, then guess what? Today's the conversation you're going to want to listen to until the very last word. I promise. You know why? Because today's guest not only has a BA in communication, and I'm sure she'll tell us a little bit more about that, but also has lots of experience in sales and marketing as a manager for, I guess it's probably one of the world's largest brands ever. But I'm sure she's going to tell us more about that. But she also decided to become a commercial broker, and today is the principal at CRE Endeavors. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's conversation, Whitney Ward. Whitney, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Billy. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's really looking forward to this. Why do I have a feeling that the entire Going Long family is going to get a lot of education today and have some fun along the way?
Well, I hope so. That's what I'm here for.
Well, I'm sure that's going to happen. Don't worry. Listen, Whitney, you know we're going to give you, or at least I'm going to ask you at least 5 questions, 2 in the beginning, 3 in the end, and then probably ask you a whole bunch of questions in the middle. I just don't know what those questions are yet because it will depend on what you share with us. So if it's all right with you, I'd like to get started and help us understand, where is it that you call home today?
Yeah, so I live in Atlanta, Georgia. Love it. Been here for 12 years. So yeah.
All right, fantastic. And if you're not familiar with it, some people also call it the ATL, from what I tend to understand. So, but I've been away for almost 2 decades from the US, but this is one of these things. So also too, Whitney, what's the most positive thing that's happened to or for you in the last 24 hours?
Well, so everyone knows yesterday was Juneteenth. So that was exciting, getting to celebrate freedom here in the United States. And so I took off, relaxed, and then got 8 hours of sleep. So it might not be exciting to everyone else, but that is amazing and very rare to do on a consistent basis in our business or even in our lives. So yeah, those have been the two most exciting things in the last 24 hours.
All right, fantastic. Well, I appreciate you sharing both of those things. And so it's absolutely fantastic. So Whitney, can I share something with you that
Sure.
all the Going Long family, they already know, but you may not know this. I'm a recovering perfectionist. So sometimes I try to do things that are almost impossible, like tell your entire backstory. I think it was probably like 1.2 seconds, something like that. That was never going to happen. But I always try to give myself these like goals and stuff. And so I would love for you to help me, please.
Sure.
And help me by sharing your backstory in your own words. And you can take a lot longer than 1.2 seconds. Take as much time as you need. You're our special guest. And Whitney, if you could also to help share with us some of the major decisions that you've made along the way, and then we'll see where you and I take the conversation from there.
Yeah. So I'm not going to tell you the full long story because we'd be here for a whole day. But but essentially, so I was one of those people. I think you hear this story sometimes, where you hear the person that comes from corporate America and transitions into real estate, and then has such major success, and all this great stuff happens. My road has been very choppy, has been very difficult, but has been very valuable and humbling and exciting all at one time. So you mentioned earlier when you started the podcast that I came from the corporate Fortune 500 background in sales and marketing. That was something I did right out of college. I played Division I basketball. So, for me initially, thinking about my career, it was basketball, it was sports. I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do in the college years of my life. And so what kind of naturally happened was sales and marketing, because athletes generally have a very competitive, exciting personality. So it kind of fits and transitions pretty well. So I spent, I would say, probably 8 to 9 years in corporate, working for two different very large companies, one here in Atlanta. Everyone's probably heard of Coca-Cola. I had a great time. I would move up, I would get promoted, and I was very driven and got along with all of my colleagues and stuff, but it got to a point where I just was not being fulfilled in my experiences. So I then, of course, like everyone does, you start listening to podcasts, because that's how you're going to get your motivation. So podcasts like this one would be ideal for anyone trying to think about their next steps in their career, if that's where you're at. But I started listening to podcasts, particularly in real estate. At the time, I had considered going back and getting an MBA and doing all that. But at the time, the trajectory was, okay, if I got an MBA and went back to corporate, I would still have to kind of do the corporate politics to get promoted. It wasn't necessarily performance-based. And so I instead, navigated towards real estate because I started learning more about income producing properties and stuff like that. So for me, in order to get out of corporate, I went and got my real estate license, and that allowed me to come full-time into the real estate business. And so when I initially started in commercial real estate, I started in multifamily, because I just felt multifamily, everyone needs a place to live. So it felt like a viable asset that made sense in the long term. And then I just focused my career in that and started helping investors buy and sell out of apartment deals from all sizes, but mostly typically under 100 units. And then, I started seeing what the other side of that table looked like, what those returns looked like on the other side. And, the commission was great. It was very large and nice, but it was like, well, how am I going to build wealth, and how am I going to retire if I choose to, which I don't think at this point I will. I love what I do. But anyway, so I was like, I need to create some type of system or platform or some ability to grow my wealth. And that's when probably I would say 4 years into brokering deals, I started transitioning into the acquisition side of the business and just obsessed over learning how the whole process worked, from the capital stack to acquiring deals to the due diligence, all of it. And so that's what brought me to where I'm at today, which is in the real estate private equity space, where, we focus on placing equity into different sponsors and developers' deals as a co-GP or LP partner.
Okay, fantastic. So we can unpack so many different things there, but I just want the entire Going Long family to notice that as we're having this conversation, Whitney talks about her Division I basketball experience, as well as her extreme focus on being able to learn more and apply that knowledge in the commercial real estate space. Hence, how teaming and focus can really help you to turbo boost your long distance investing success.
I love how you brought that around.
But anyway, just one of these things. No, it's really interesting. So you kind of, as I heard you tell the story, right? And you're talking about the Division I experience, and you're talking about how you found commercial real estate, but then you talked right about how you went and got your license, right? But the thing that I'm really curious about, because I'm always just curious, like people, how do you find out about real estate? I know you talked about listening to podcasts and you're driving back and forth in corporate, but what was it about real estate that attracted you to real estate and versus you could have been stock trading all day, or you could have been, I don't know, going into land development or there's so many different things that you could have done, but what was it that attracted your attention about real estate and just made you want to continue to go down that path versus something else in the beginning?
Yeah. So real estate is something you see, first of all. So it was easier to relate to. And then I had an aunt and some family members that were in the real estate business. They were on the residential side, but they were still in the business. So that was mostly what made it easier to kind of navigate that path.
Got it. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And so, it's because you just mentioned that, and I'm thinking about back when I was in high school and I was driving around, and like you see people living in places every day. But at that time, I wasn't even aware of other than the fact that my parents had to pay rent wherever we were going. I never thought about it as a business opportunity. Right. And it wasn't until even after college and being in the corporate that I was one of the people that was going back and forth on my scooter, not in my car, back to work, but listening to podcasts, and started realizing that there was an opportunity for, business building or investing and things like that. So I'm always just curious. It's one of those kind of questions that I have, but also too, because you're in a very unique, positively unique experience in that you had an opportunity to play at in Division I level back stateside. And I'm just curious, what did that experience, what has that brought to you positively in what you're doing today as the principal at CRE Endeavors? If you can kind of tie the knot, I'm always interested in that sports and stuff. And you brought it up earlier. So.
No, I think there's a ton of other things you could do. It doesn't have to just be sports, but I think what playing at that high level teaches you is how to deal with failure. I will admit that early on when I didn't know how to deal with failure, even as an athlete, but as I matured and was able to understand that that's part of the process, I think that helps because, you're a business owner. It's hard. And not all of us, for me, my background, my parents were hardworking individuals, but neither one of them took the risk of, starting their own business. And it's a risk. It's a risk. And I've funded my entire business. So I haven't had any family members kind of help or anything like that. So taking that risk and then a risk that you don't really know how to navigate is scary. But, with my personality, it's kind of like, I've always been the person jump in and then find out who I need to know and what I need to know in order to make it work. And ideally, that's not the best path. I would have preferred to have the right mentors and the right people to tell me exactly step by step what to do to avoid mistakes. But it was the path that I had, and that was the only choice I could make.
So that was the only choice that you can make, and you're kind of seeing that now. And it's, I don't know if this, well, I'm going to ask a question anyway. How much value do you see in the mistakes that you made along the way? I guess because you said maybe it wasn't the best path, but I want to challenge that a little bit.
Yeah, well, when you're funding a business yourself, you don't really have an excess amount of money, so your mistakes could really mess you up. So there was decision, when you don't have the proper guidance, sometimes, think about it, when you go to school, they try to teach you in a step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 step. But when you're on your own, you're learning step 3 before you learn step 1. And so by learning step 3, you missed 1 and 2, which might be something that you need in order to get to step 4 without making a significant mistake that drops you back. So that was what happened to me. It's I saw how the syndication business did and how people were buying apartment buildings, but I did not understand the nuances that really happened in the details, right? So I'm I'm going to do this, but okay, what size deals are you going to get? What do you have in your network, equity wise that can afford you to get that deal? Who's going to sign for your loan? How are you going to put this deal together? What's the best structure of the capital stack? So there was a lot of things that I had to learn that really took a while for me to even buy deals because, I had to learn those steps and figure out my structure before I could even move forward. But if I had the proper guidance, maybe I could have bought a deal in 6 months versus 3 years. I think the value of having someone that's been there and walked the path that can tell you how to do step 1 through 5 versus you going out and learning step 4, then 1, then 2, and making all these mistakes is definitely worth it. It can get you where you're going a lot faster.
Yeah, and this is where one of the biggest values, and hopefully going along family, you're going to go back and listen to what Whitney just shared with you. But this is really the reason that coaches, business coaches, that real estate coaches, that they exist. It's not because if you can collapse a time frame and instead of you're at month 6 to have your first deal versus 3 years. Well, the experience that you're going to gain for those 2.5 years in between, that's the value that your coach should be bringing you. Right. Because I used to never think about, coaching. I don't want to do that. And then when I got my first coach, it helped me to actually propel the assets that were in the portfolio. Now, of course, I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and you're going to make mistakes. Even if you have a coach, doesn't mean you're not going to make mistakes. You just are going to get to the result faster. You should be at least getting to the result a lot faster. Anything you want to add to that, Whitney?
No, I mean, I believe in coaches. I just think that it's hard to find the right coach, right? It takes a lot of digging into what is it that you're actually trying to achieve and then finding out who that coach is. But I agree with you 100%.
Cool. So you knew you had some experience from family that had given you some access or insights to real estate, but you were crystal clear from the very beginning that you wanted to go commercial and then commercial multifamily, because it seemed like, and you didn't exactly say this, maybe I'm extrapolating a little bit, people need a place to sleep. So it kind of makes a lot of sense. I mean, beyond that, what was it about the commercial multifamily place or space that really, like, you knew inside that that's exactly where you wanted to go all in on?
Yeah. So let me be clear. So my family, I knew that one of my aunts is a realtor. Besides that, nothing. So there wasn't much guidance into getting into real estate outside of really my listening podcast. But without putting a rival in here, I listened to Clayton Morris, and he talked a lot about buying single family properties. And
you're allowed to talk about other people.
Yeah, I was like,
it's so funny. People are like, I can't talk about it. I'm okay with that. I mean, okay. We're fine with this. This is a practice in abundant thinking and doing.
There you go.
So it's all good.
Exactly. So I started listening to Clayton Morris, and he and his wife invest in the Midwest. I don't know if they have their podcast anymore, but in the Midwest, single family homes. And I like the idea of what they were doing. But I was like, man, the scalability of a single family home is just so much more difficult than buying one building that has 40 units, 50 units, 60 units. So the idea was planted through my podcast research and just kind of reading and kind of listening to how other people invested in the real estate. Mm-hmm. And then from there, as I was brokering real estate and being involved in that, to me, it just logically made sense that anything in housing was a smart bet, whether it was commercial or residential. But for me, it was like, I see the idea of single family investing. I just don't like how there's the scale is a lot slower, right? So let me learn multifamily investing. And that's when I started finding all like the meetups and the players in this Atlanta market that were doing multifamily investing. And I went where they were. And I asked them a ton of questions. And so that's kind of what made me choose multifamily and stick with that.
Okay. So how much do you say, so you figured out that was multifamily, you went there, you took the action. How much would you say that also has to do with your skill set and previous experience? Previous professional experience. Selecting that. And I'll tell you what I mean by that, but just your own previous practical and professional experience. How much that plays a role?
I think it plays a significant role. I think about if I just took Coca-Cola, the strategy and how they market different products. You could, if you look at a Sprite commercial, you obviously know they're targeting a young Black male that maybe plays a sport or something like that. Everything that these larger corporations do is very strategic and very well thought out. They know their clientele, they know what sells. And so that type of mindset transitioned with me into my entrepreneurial career.
Yeah. And I appreciate you breaking that down, because I know I have very successful single family residence investors that I know very well, and they have thousands of units, thousands of houses. And they love that space. But then also when you start to go back and you look at what their previous professional experience was, it starts to make sense. You go, oh, okay, hang on a second. Someone who's done engineering their entire life that likes to go down to the, maybe this is, making it a high level, generalization, but they love the fact that there are thousands of single family houses, and it doesn't bother that individual or their business model that every single house is different. And they have to have a whole bunch of different ways to repair and maintenance and stuff like that. And then there are other mindsets, which are hey, listen, if I'm going to do this, why don't we just get 100 doors or less than 100 doors under the same roof and be able to scale it out that way? So I'm always curious about because people are listening to us and they're watching us on, on video, and they're thinking to myself, okay, well, Whitney's saying this, but it kind of like a lot of it resonates with me, but there's this thing I want to keep going to single family. And I guess it's the matter of recognizing what is it that your skill set is, and also how much it motivates you.
That, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but that, and then also your ability, what's your ability to buy? Like, that 20 unit might be $3 million, $4 million, and that just might not be in your buy box. So a single family might be the strategy, and maybe you then eventually sell your single family and scale up. But it really depends on what you got to be able to look at what your profile is and how you can get into the business.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. So talk to us a little bit about what you do over at CRE Endeavors and how you're serving others today.
Yeah. So I started my career at KW Commercial here in Atlanta, and I was one of the main multifamily brokers at the office that I was at. And after about 3.5 years there, I got my broker's license because I wanted to have more autonomy in how I built my business. And so we actually originally launched the business as a property management company. We were formerly named Intuitive Management Partners, and we had some contracts. I honestly hated the business. And, it wasn't my cup of tea. It wasn't my business. I made that move because I felt that was the best way to get into acquisitions, and later found out it wasn't a necessary need to get into acquisitions in that way. But by going into property management first, I learned the operations of the asset. I made relationships with some of the top managers in the Southeast on the property management side and on the acquisition side. So it actually ended up being a good lesson, but also at the same time allowed me to learn the business from the inside out. And that truly is the way that you can become a better investor in the multifamily space. But then about 1.5 years ago, we rebranded to CRE Endeavors, and our focus since rebranding has been more consulting and real estate private equity. And I guess I should have swapped them, because it's more real estate private equity is 95% of our business, and consulting is that 5%. And I'll explain what I do in both. But on the real estate private equity, we just launched a real estate fund, a $20 million real estate fund to co-invest with other managers, developers in multifamily acquisitions on the value add, core plus, and opportunistic side. And then our consulting brokerage business is more of a referral-based business. Companies will refer out their financial analyst work to us. We'll underwrite deals for other firms, and then occasionally we'll get family friends or our network will reach out and have commercial real estate properties on the multifamily and retail side that need to divest or transition for divestment. So we're very busy. We're a small team, but hyper-focused in the multifamily and retail sectors, as we think those two sectors are ones that, in my opinion, are a necessity to our economy and how we live. Yeah.
All right. Well, fantastic. Well, I appreciate you giving us the breakdown and also how you are serving others. And I'm sure you're going to give us ways to contact you here very shortly. But the thing is, Whitney, time flies, but like we kind of have to get to the going long final three. And the thing is, I also never ask any of our guests, and today you're our special guest, to go along final three until you tell me that you're ready. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Not a shocker. So here we go. So we started with you over in Atlanta on the East Coast of the US, and I guess Southeast. I want to kind of bring things back to this side of the pond, because even though I'm originally from Columbus, Ohio, I've been living in Europe for over 2 decades. So I would love for you to share with me and the entire Going Long family, what is your favorite European city that you've either visited or still on your bucket list to visit?
All right. So I'm the worst. I'll make it quick. I'm the worst. I have not been anywhere outside of like the Caribbean and Mexico. I'm one of those.
You don't have to tell. And it doesn't make you the worst either, by the way.
I know, but like I know everyone's like so big on traveling and all that to Europe and all that. And I think culturally it'd be amazing to see, but I'm a US advocate. Like I'll go to all these amazing places in the United States and love every moment of it. And then the Caribbean as well. But for Europe, I think I'd be interested in seeing London, of course. You have to. Obviously, England is awesome. And then my jiu-jitsu professor is from France, and he's actually from Paris. So I would probably be into seeing Paris too.
Okay. Well, Paris, France is what we're going to go with, because I used to live in Paris. I started there over 2 decades ago, and I've never gone back to the US since then to live. But anyway, that's a whole long story. We'll talk about that later on. So we'll take Paris. But then we're also going to go on to question number 2 of the Going Long Final 3. And that really has to do with, and you've talked to us a little bit about this already, but it's when you go out and you're doing new things, there's a tendency to make some mistakes along the way, right? Or you have learning opportunities. I don't know how you used to say it, but there's so many different ways that people talk about it, but mistakes, learning opportunities, whatever they were that happened. Like, I would love for you to share with us. I don't want you to think about the mistake that you made, because you've probably made a lot. I know I've made a whole heck of a lot, but I'd like for you to think about what is the lesson that you learned from the mistake or the learning opportunity that you had, that you know by sharing that one lesson, what that one lesson is, and it's going to help somebody that's listening to us today. What's the one lesson you'd want to share?
I think learning and understanding your value is being one of the biggest lessons. I mean, the more that you can understand what you bring to the table, the more you can position yourself in a way that not only favors the person you're trying to do business with, but also yourself. So a lot of times we move into any space and we don't really realize the value we bring. And so we undervalue ourselves and we're not reaching our full potential. So what I've learned is that learning and knowing my value in every scenario, it could be large, it could be as small as a one-on-one interaction, understanding what I bring to the table and what their needs are can make for a better alignment of interest.
All right, fantastic. So really understand the value that you bring to the table and each different opportunities. So appreciate you sharing that, Whitney. And then the last question of the Going Long Final 3 is really to help us to feed our brains with some knowledge. It can be any type of book that you want, but just share with us, what is one book that you would recommend to the Going Long family today?
Yeah, Thinking Fast and Slow by David Kahneman. Honestly, still to this day is probably one of the best books. And really, honestly, I used to be afraid of flying. That book has helped me not be afraid of flying. So I suggest read it. It just talks a little bit about, we have a system 1 and a system 2. Our system 1 thinks fast, intuitively, emotionally. Our system 2 is a slower, more logical thinking system. And it explains, even in the basic scenarios, how we are quick to think with our system 1, and it tries to explain how to think more with your system 2.
All right, fantastic. Thinking Fast and Slow. So we'll include that in the show notes as well. And I just think about from the very beginning of the conversation, Whitney, when you're talking to us about how your road and getting to the commercial real estate space has been, as you talked about, just keeping it real. I think you said it's been a choppy road, been valuable and humbling at the same time, one in which has allowed you to learn lessons and also be able to pay it forward to others. Talked about the D1 basketball experience that you have, and we've seen how being able to learn how to team effectively is one of the ways that you've continued to grow and make a positive impact on others. Being able to focus, just like you mentioned, once you realized that it was the real estate space because it made sense to you that it was the commercial real estate space. You went out, you got your license, and you really went deep in terms of the knowledge that you were learning and applying. And then from there, well, you know what? You even got a chance to really get the hyper focus and say, you want to be able to focus on the types of units that are 100 and below, and being able to even provide opportunities for others to be able to invest alongside of you. That you talked about the fun that you have. So as I'm talking, people are like, yeah, Billy, just ask her the question, please. So I'm going to ask you the question because the Going Long family wants to know, Whitney, what's the best way for us to find out more about you and be in touch with you and find out what you have going on at CRE Endeavors?
Yeah. So one of the best ways is on LinkedIn. It's just Whitney Ward. I think it's hashtag multifamily, but Whitney Ward in Atlanta, you'll be able to find me. And then also our website, it's CRE-Endeavors.com. We've got a lot of good content if you're trying to learn a little bit more about investing in multifamily or understanding what we do that might be able to help your business if you're already in the space.
All right. Fantastic. Well, we will make sure that we have links. So if you're running on the treadmill or you're, swimming, I guess you can swim and listen to us at the same time. So whatever you're doing, don't worry. We'll make it really easy. And we just have a link. All you need to do is click the link and you'll be able to reach out to Whitney and her team. So Whitney, on behalf of the entire Going Long family, I want to say thank you very much for deciding to invest your time with me and with us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right, perfect. And Whitney, could you give me maybe like 10 to 12 seconds? Just want to wrap up a couple of things with the Going Long family, and then we'll get you out of here. So Going Long family, look, Whitney just shared so much goodness. She kept it real, like talked to you about these things that work really, really well, the things that helped her to get to where she is now, and also the way that she is helping to impact others positively. Take today's content, share it with your family, share it with your friends. Heck, pick 2 to 3 people, share it, send the episode, and then get together and talk about the concepts that Whitney just shared with you. And then while you're doing that, I'm going to be here preparing for the very next conversation. So until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much.